Hey guys, what's up? Back today with another deck profile for you guys. It's going to be on my Blue Eyes White Dragon Invoked deck. I know Blue Eyes just came out and everyone's just rushing to build the deck, and there's many variations of it. The two variations that I'm building here are going to be the Invoke, which you'll see in a second here, and the Buster Blader. I wanted to build Buster Blader because I really like Buster Blader. I have like half the engine ready. I just couldn't find where my Buster Whelps were, so I had to go out and pay for those, and they're kind of pricey. And not gonna lie, none of these budget versions of the decks are no longer technically budget. The only real budget version of the deck now is if you just bought literally 3 of the structure deck and you're just playing that with maybe a few upgrades. If you're trying to add a secondary engine to the deck, can get really pricey or a little pricey with the popular ones. But yeah, I just want to go and show off my build of the deck. Now I'm still experimenting with the ratios and the numbers, and so is everyone else. And right now, it's kind of cookie cutter in the sense that it's really similar to other people's build. But I just wanted to show it off and talk about it because I used to play Blue Eyes White Dragon Invoke way back then, back when Invoke came out, and I forgot what engine was popular. I think it was Mech Knights, I think. And back then, Mech Knights with Invoke were Mech Knights were a little pricey, so I decided to just use Blue Eyes White Dragon because I had the deck from like way back then, and it worked out pretty well. I mean, it wasn't the strongest version of the deck because you're playing 3 Blue Eyes and they can get like bricky and whatnot. But it was a fun deck, and the deck always kind of like floated around. But nowadays, it's an actually decent deck, namely because we had decent link monsters to go into. Back then, when the deck was available, you didn't really have a way to put a light type monster immediately into your graveyard unless you discarded Blue Eyes White Dragon with Melody or trade in. It was really hard to get another light monster into the graveyard to fuse for Makaba. Nowadays, you can summon out literally any of the um, some of like normal summonable monsters, Sage of Blue, Alistair, and then you went into the Magispector, not Magispector, the Armides, or whatever. I forgot her name was. You go into her or Amaraj, and you go into guard, security guard. I forgot the name of the link monster. Forgive me. But yeah, you went into that. Nowadays, if you're playing Blue Eyes this version, you can go into the Link 1 Blue Eyes, and that puts the light onto the board and eventually into the graveyard. So you can consistently get out Macabre turn 1 without question, So that's the cool thing about this deck nowadays. So I do think it's a pretty good deck, especially if you've got a little bit of money to spend. It's not as expensive as the Buster Blader version. It's not as expensive as the the whatchamacallit, the Primate version, for sure. It's still if a viable deck to play. The main problem with this version of the deck is normal summons, right? So you're playing Invoke Alistair, which requires you to always normal summon the guy to get value and generate value, and deck space, extra deck space. So that's the two main constraint of the deck is just that if your normal summon Alistair gets stopped or something happens to it, it is kind of a choke point for the deck. And then also the other choke point in the deck is the actual extra deck itself. Eventually you're going to run out of monsters to summon. Hopefully you don't get to that point. Hopefully you beat the other person before it gets to the point where you're out of, I guess, material or out of engine. So those are kind of the weaknesses of the deck. I just kind of want to put it out there. The strong point about this deck is that you can bring out Macabre before your 5th summon, so that way you kind of shield yourself from Nibiru. So that's kind of nice. So that's the main plus about this particular deck. But you are playing a couple other quote unquote brick cards, or just you might run out of gas sooner than later. All right, so let's talk about it. Right, you'll definitely run out of gas before Primate does. The Primate version of the deck can indefinitely go where this is you're limited by your extra deck and your ability to consistently get Alistair out onto the board. Pretty normal standard build here nowadays is just to play 2 Blue Eyes. Ratios may change in the future. You may even just play 1 if you wanted to, but the fact that Bystials exist and all the other stuff exists, Graveyard Hate, you're better off playing the 2 here and not risk just playing the 1, and then having your entire engine shut off because they banish one of them or something. Anyways, play the one Jet. Jet is still a fun card to have. Jet plus the Stardust cards or Jet plus Macabre makes it pretty hard to get rid of Macabre just because it protects your whole board. So kind of nice, but obviously not super duper mandatory to play in the deck here. Then you have your rest of your Blue Eyes engine per se. You have 3 Sages, 3 Maiden of Whites. These are probably the cards that you have to play 3 of, and then the one Master of Blue or Master of Eyes of Blue. Don't necessarily need this card, but it does help extend, does help to get you your Veiler back and stuff like that. But I would say if there's any card you can cut, you could probably cut this card. And it also conflicts with Alistair in the sense that it takes up a normal summon if you don't have Mausoleum of White. As long as you have Mausoleum of White, this deck can just abuse its normal summon. But if you don't have that, then you make it choked out if you're trying to summon just one normal summon monster. And then obviously we have the triple Alistair. So you're playing 3 Alistairs to see him as soon as possible. And worst comes to worst, he is kind of like a mini Kalut for your fusion monster. So you can pump up your Macabres, you can pump up your Tyrant Dragon and just attack the entire board. So there's things you can do with him if he's in your hand and if he's kind of dead. You can also feed him to Macabre to negate monster effects. So it's nice to have 3 copies to see him as soon as possible in your opening hand because you do want to get him to normal summon and then start going off from there. And then the non-engine stuff, I'm sure you guys seen this, plenty other YouTube channels, just 3 of everything here. 3 Veiler, 3 Ash, 3 Nibiru. Veiler I'd say Veiler is probably the weakest of the hand traps. Still a really good card. Super searchable that's why we play it in here. I prefer Imperm over Veiler, but Veiler is still a good card. May not be strong enough to stop certain decks by itself, but in combination of Veiler plus other hand traps, should give you a decent fighting chance. Next off, you have Wishes of Eyes of Blue. This is basically your Melody. You don't play Trading anymore because you're not really playing too many level 8s, and you're not really playing Melody anymore because you're not playing the other 3,000, 2,500 beat sticks. You're not playing Alternative, you're not playing Chaos Emperor or any Leviathan, Levineer, or whatever the card's name was. Not really playing that. If you're playing that version, you're probably playing more of a Dragon Link version, which can still be played if you wanted to. I haven't really cooked a Dragon Link style deck in a while. After Halki Fibrax was banned, the deck was a little hard to pilot without that main core, and then you also had Baron being banned and things like that. So I think the Dragon Link version of the deck, you're just better off playing pure Dragon Links over playing a Blue Eyes Dragon Link version of the deck. So yeah. Anyways, you have the other copies of one ofs here. You have one of the Roar of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, super searchable. You can play 2 copies if you wanted to. I think one is probably fine. One Mausoleum, it's searchable via the Link 1, and we also play Terraforming his deck, so it's super searchable. It's also, you can search it off of Bingo Machine. So Bingo Machine, the reason why I play this card here is just to be able to set it with the True Light and then use it to get essentially, if you don't have Wishes already, you can just get Wishes of Blue. Or if you have Wishes of Blue in the graveyard and you're trying to get a, let's say you have True Light, right, and you have one of these in your graveyard and 2 of these still in your deck, and you want to kind of gamble to try to get one of these copies, you can set Bingo Machine with True Light and then use Bingo Machine to try to get an additional copy of this. So that's the use of the Bingo Machine I found. It's just the one copy because True Light doesn't let you set any spell or traps that you already own in the graveyard, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the way, from what I remember, that's the restriction on it. So Bingo Machine kind of bypasses that restriction by giving you essentially like a third, fourth, like a 3.5 copy of True Wishes, or Wishes for Eyes of Blue. So that's why we play it. And then, yeah, that's really it. You're not really adding the actual monsters to your hand anymore. You could maybe try to search for Jet Dragon off of this thing, but that's about it. You're not really adding Blue Eyes directly to your hand anymore. Then for there are like I guess counter spells, I would say, or like spells that just help us play through hand traps. You got your triple tactics talents. You could play the thrust if you wanted to. Call by the graves, call by the graves. You know, not much to say about that. And then we have terraforming, and we have the rest of the spells here. So terraforming plus two magical meltdowns and a one invocation. We're only playing one invocation because honestly, we're only playing two fusion monsters. We don't really need this card. If we're trying to minimize our dead hand, so we don't really want to open with it. If we open it plus an Alistair, it's whatever. It's not the end of the world. Um, Otherwise, we'd rather see Alistair first in our opening hand than the invocation. So hence why we're playing the magical meltdowns to try to get to Alistair or just Alistair into the invocation. But yeah, so just one invocation there. You could play two invocations if you decide to dedicate more extra deck space to the invoke fusion monsters, but I didn't really invest too much into that. So yeah. And then finally, just the rest of the lineup here. We have just triple imperm, and then we have the True Light and the Majesty of White Dragon. Not much to say about those. I'm sure you guys already know what those cards are. As for our extra deck here, it's still experimenting with this, but it's a work to be remain as a work of progress, right? So you have I'm playing Cosmic Blazer Dragon. I know this card's not that popular. Especially if you have these two right here. I bought this thing for like, I don't know, $5 back then. So, and I bought Crimson for like another like $10. So I got this kind of early back then because I knew I wanted to play Blue Eyes. At that time, I didn't really know about Primites, so I didn't really pick up Primites. I pulled, I think, Drill Beam from my Judge packs, but I didn't pull any of the other Primite stuff. So I'm not gonna bother building Primite Blue Eyes until it gets a reprint. Anyways, Cosmic is a nice card to have if you don't have these two. Or at least if you don't have Safer, right? If you don't have Safer here, then Cosmic is not a bad budget version. Crimson Dragon, there's nothing to replace Crimson Dragon. You either have it or you don't have it. And I know it's a bit of an expensive card now. It's like around $30 or so. Back to its like original pricing, if not more. So if you don't have a Crimson Dragon, then you wouldn't really want to play any of these. But I'm playing this because there is a potential to eventually summon something like this, right? You might be able to actually get all three on the board. Obviously, that's just a win more situation at that point. But if you're able to make 3 Spirit Dragons, you're able to get 3 of these onto the board really, really easily. By turn, if you went first, you'd be able to get out at least 2 of them, and then by your turn, you should be able to get out the last piece easily if all things go all well. But yeah, so those are the synchros there that I'm playing. Then I'm obviously playing just the 3 Spirit, the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon here. Now you can play 2 copies, but I find that just it might be better to play 3 copies if you are somehow if you're getting Dominus Impulse, that's where you want to play a 3rd copy. If you're thinking your meta has a lot of Dominus Impulses or something similar to that, then this is something you might want to play 3 copies of. Because if they Dominus Impulse one of your Blue Eyes White Dragon spirits, if you have 2 of them and Dominus Impulse one of them, then you're kind of like stuck in a weird, awkward place. That you can still play the game, but you're gonna play pretty suboptimal. So sometimes I think it might be better to play 3, or if they get Solemn Strike or whatever, right? Solemn Strike, Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, something to stop the summon from the deck, or the extra deck. Sorry, if they stop your special summon, and you're only playing 2 copies of Spirit, then it's a little tricky to navigate. But yeah, and playing 3 copy allows you to potentially bring out these 3, right? Now, if you didn't want to play this, another good card to play would be Hot Red Archfiend, the level 9 one, because if they somehow stop one of your summons, right, or they just negate it or whatever, they impermanent prematurely or some for whatever reason, right, they stop it, then you can target your Blue Eye Spirit with your Crimson Dragon, level 9, bring out another level 9, and then you'll be able to bring out Hot Red in its place. So that's another option there to play. Then you also have another option here to go into Moonlight. Now, Moonlight is not, it's a good card for sure, especially if you can summon off of Spirit and just interrupt it, or if you summon off of Spirit and you have Safer on the board, and you have this thing stick around, it's a pretty good card. It will mess with your opponent's summons and things like that. So, not as strong as it used to be, but still a good choice to play. As for fusions, we are playing just this, right? So we're playing the two Macabres, Neo, and then Tyrant Dragon. Not much to say about that. But yeah, two Macabres. You could play the one Macabre and one, I forget the monster's name, but it's the Pauper, I think. It's something with an A. I totally forget. Something like Invoke, whatever. But yeah, I'm decided to play just two of the Macabres because I think as long as you get one out on the board, that's good enough. And if they do get rid of the first one, then maybe a second one will help you win the game. But you're not really trying to fuse all that much with the Invoke Alistair. Invoke Alistair is there to essentially just get out one to protect yourself and make a board, and then hopefully you'll be able to protect that board. So you don't necessarily need any other fusion elements. I know there's the wind one, which is decent, the pyro one, and the dark one. You could play those if you wanted to, and then you'd be able to use your opponent's graveyard to fuse for those ones. But I'm focusing on my own graveyard and my own game plan, and so I think just the two Macabres here is good enough. You could play maybe a third Invoke monster if you Invoke fusion if you wanted to, but I think the two Macabres okay. And finally, we have just the SP and the two spirits. I think you definitely need to play two spirits, namely just to get get the monster into the graveyard, just to combo off with Alistair. This is just basically the best way to send Alistair because this just requires a let me read it here, level 4 or lower spellcaster or dragon. So basically anything will go into Spirit Dragon, which is great. And then you have one SP. I'm playing this over the Heraldic Seal, namely because SP you can send it with Alistair and whatever else. The Heraldic Seal requires, I believe, 2 dragons, and so I think SP is a little bit easier to summon in this particular deck than the Heraldic, just because you have Alistair on the board most of the time. So you can still play seals if you wanted to, or play something else, but options are there. You can even take out SP if you don't care for it and just play another Invoke Fusion, either the one that pops one, or the Dark type, or something else. All right. As for the side deck here, it's kind of like I just saw some other profiles, and I just don't really know what is going to be a good contender against the meta right now. So it's pretty cookie cutter. So I'm not going to really go in too much details about it. You do have Triple Lancia, that's for Malice, I believe, and anything that likes to banish. So Triple Lancia. I'm playing something a little different. I'm playing the Phantasme and a single Bestial. You could play more of a huger Bestial engine. Magnum, it's okay in the deck. Like, it doesn't really search you any particular dragon that you want. Maybe it searches you for a Jet Dragon if you wanted one in your hand. Outside of that, there's not much else that you can add because everything else is sort of a dark type. So you can search for Phantasme if you wanted to, or you can search for Blue Eyes if you just need something in your hand to discard for Macabre. So that's essentially why we're playing the one Bistro there. And obviously you can also play Druid Swarm or any of the other Bistros if you wanted to. And then triple Encore, this is just to play against namely Raziel. You can also play Ultimate Slayer, I believe. Ultimate Slayer is not a good card to go ahead and try out. Or you can play Dark Ruler No More if you wanted to. Just something that's able to break a board going second. And so those cards are good. I think you need your battle phase, so I'm not sure if evenly matched is still going to be good. Maybe it is. I don't quite know. I'm guessing Blue Eyes doesn't really need its battle phase. It's more of a controlled deck, so it can just pass battle phase, go and evenly double or whatever, and then just set up its board going second. So maybe that's better than Exceed Encore. I'm not quite sure yet. Let me know what you guys think about that. Okay. Same thing here, like you have the Lightning Storms plus the Harpy's Feather Duster. Same thing, they're flex cards. I'd say Harpy is probably the only one that you would really want to keep. Lightning Storm, maybe you can play evenly matched instead, or you play the Ultimate Slayer, or something else. I'm not too quite sure yet, but yeah, this is just another option to play. And finally, you either play Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike, or anything else. Like most of the extra deck right now, or sorry, most of the side deck right now is kind of just flexible. You're not really limited to anything, just whatever works for you guys. I'm playing the Judgments because I do like the idea that if you do set up your board, that you don't automatically lose to like Dark Rule no more or a Droplet or something like that. Hence why I'm playing the Judgment, just to protect myself from spells and traps. Um, Monster effects, you have Slafer, you have a bunch of other stuff to stop monster effects, but spells and traps are a little bit more difficult to stop. We're not really playing Harbinger, or any of the other big level 8s that can do stuff, because we're not really exceeding anymore in Blue Eyes. It's more of a level 1 synchro tuner box nowadays. Back when, Blue Eyes was more heavily based on level 8s, then we had a stronger ability to stop spells and have on demand popping and whatnot. But nowadays it's more of controlling the board with our big synchro monsters to negate and stop their plays, and then try to protect those synchro monsters with something like Solemn Judgment or Lancia, stop them from getting targeted and banished by your opponent's Malice monsters, and yeah, and things like that. Or even with same thing with Phantasme. Phantasme out on the board, it's nice to be able to just stop them from targeting your boss monsters with with negation, like imperms and veilers and just random stuff like that. That's just good to have on the board. Anyways, guys, that's basically it. It's pretty simple deck, pretty straightforward. I think the most expensive card in this deck nowadays is gonna be for sure the Alistairs. I think I heard they went up in price. The ones I have here, they're quote unquote the max rarity ones, but you can go for the lower rarities, the Gold Series one, and they're not too expensive. They're like maybe it's like $2 to $5. These ones I think are going for about $15, and you don't really need these. That particular rarity. Everything else comes in the structure deck. Every single hand trap that I showed you guys here comes in the structure deck. The entire, except for maybe like triple tactics talent and the meltdowns and invocation. Everything else comes in the extra, the structure deck. And then same thing with the side deck. I think everything can be found for relatively cheap. I think the most expensive card in here might be Lightning Storm. I would say everything else is like 50 cents and less. Maybe Solemn Judgment's a little bit expensive, but not too pricey. Extra deck wise, you can find in Macabre Invokes for relatively cheap. Everything else here comes in the extra or the structure deck, except for like the big dollar stuff, which is going to be this right here. I think these are like $30 each. This is not even that cheap. These are really cheap. This is like what, $3 or $4, and this is maybe like $5, so not too bad. So the most expensive cards are going to be Alistair, which if you play the nice, secret rare set, about $45, and then $30 each for the Crimson Dragon and Star Safer. You don't need these. If you don't play these, then you can definitely focus more on the fusion aspect of Alistair. So instead of playing more Spirit Dragon, you can play maybe 2 Spirit Dragons, and then you can play this and this. And that'd be good enough, honestly, to, to get you into. Oh, actually, you can't play this without. Sorry, you can't play that without the Crimson Dragon. But if you don't have Crimson Dragon, you can play another copy of um, Spirit Dragon here, Ultimate Spirit Dragon, and then you can play more Invoked fusions. So you can play more copies of Macabre. You can play more copies of the Fire one. The Fire one is pretty good. Wins your game sometimes. People don't know that thing. You can if you beef that thing up and you just attack their whole board, pretty good. And it pierces too. So that game's a game ender. You can play the Wind one. The Wind one's just a on-demand Book of Moon. You can use Droll and Lockbird as a material for that. The Earth one's the worst one. Don't play that one unless you're gonna play Exceeds and use that as an Exceed material. Uh, Outside of that, yeah, I think this deck is a good quote unquote budget version of the Blue Eyes White Dragon deck. Like I done a couple of test hands, and it's done pretty well. I'm not gonna bore you guys with the combo videos. I'm sure you see plenty of those on YouTube. I'm just gonna give you guys my opinion of the deck here, being that I played both Invokes and Blue Eyes for quite a while before the structure deck has come out, and so I think the deck can actually stand on its own leg, and you can definitely take some tournaments at locals with it for sure. I don't think it's gonna be able to win like a YCS or anything like that unless you just get a lot of reps in and you just know your combo lines really well in and out, how to play around against other hand traps, how to play around against mirror matches and things like that. If you know your matchup really well, you could do really well with this particular deck, but it's harder to pilot than say something like the Primites. Primites is pretty straightforward. You summon out, the level 4 dragon, and you just rinse and repeat every single turn until your opponent gives up and scoops, right? So, and this deck requires a little bit more setup, a little bit more knowledge of your matchup, a little bit more how do I navigate from getting Alistair to be able to get in Spirit Dragon onto the board, plus Macabre, plus whatever else you need. And the choke point is the Alistair, so if you don't draw the Alistair, it kind of sucks. If you draw the other pieces, you draw like Invocation or something like that, then that kind of sucks. Or they ask your Magical Meltdown, now you may not have a starter or something like that. So yeah, the choke point is Alistair. If they stop this card, they negate it, they flip it face down, they do whatever, and then that's where your deck kind of hurts. But that could be said the same thing with if you had Sage of Blue and they they impermit, they flip it face down. Your normal summon is the choke point of this deck, and relying on Alistair can be a little risky. It's preferred that you don't rely on your normal summon. Decks that don't rely on their first initial normal summon, those are generally the better decks. But the fact that you have so many one-card starters, that's what makes this card deck good. So your opponent's not always going to be able to stop your first normal summon or your subsequent normal summon with the Mausoleum, because it's super searchable. Almost every normal summon you have in this deck will lead to Mausoleum, unless you open it with your hand or they negate the Spirit Dragon, the Baby Dragon. But yeah, I think this deck's really good, and it's a good choice to start playing and learn, especially if you're a new player. It's a good place to start learning the mechanics and the ins and out of how to play, I guess, a control deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? So this is not a combo deck, it's a control deck. You want to play it like a control deck. You don't want to sit there and do a bunch of combos and then get punished by Nibiru. You have to be able to read the air too. You have to be able to read if you suspect your opponent has a Nibiru. You have to be able to know how to navigate against that. You have to be able to think about, if I get Nibiru here, what's my next actions? What's my next play? What's my turn after that gonna look like? So playing Blue Eyes it's a high risk, high reward deck in the sense that if you're playing like these versions, like the where it has a potential to combo off, and you do combo off, then you set up, you pretty much win the game, right? But if you get interrupted or you get Nibiru'd or something like that, then you have to be able to know how to navigate the turns after that. Otherwise, you're gonna be stuck with a mediocre board, mediocre hand, and you're just gonna maybe be top decking bricks, top decking other random stuff, and that's where you'll lose. So you just have to know when to stop, when to push forward, And yeah, this deck can give you a lot of wins just playing it like a normal summon Alistair deck from 2017. You know, the strategy of invokes hasn't changed, right? You get Alistair, you normal, you get your fusion off, and then you pass turn and you pray your opponent can't out your macabre and the rest of your board. So that's it, guys. I rambled on for quite a long enough. If you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, just go ahead and leave them down below. You know, hope to bring you guys another deck profile soon. Hopefully this time of the Buster Blader version. I'm really excited for that deck. I like Buster Blader cards. It's one of my favorite cards growing up. And I wanted to incorporate it. Plus with Blue Eyes, obviously I really like Blue Eyes too, so it's nice to be able to play those two decks together. Maybe one of these days we'll get a fusion of Yugi's Buster Blader with Blue Eyes White Dragon. That'd be really, really cool. Just like how we got Red Eyes and Dark Magician. Hopefully, you know, Buster Blader gets some sort of cool fusion card. Other than Dark Paladin, you know, Dark Paladin is a cool card, but you know, it's outdated. Or hopefully we get a retrain version of that. That'd be sick if we get a retrain version of Dark Paladin that like is unaffected by spells or something like that, or negates spells all day long. That would be really, really sweet. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you guys later. You know, like, comment, subscribe, whatever. You know, I don't particularly care, but yeah, catch you guys later. Peace.